Hello everybody, welcome back to Motorsport Oracle. I'm Guy, the Motorsport Oracle. Well, not really, but that's the plan anyway. For now, sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink, and let's talk some motorsport. So we headed to Silverstone for the Grand Prix of Britain this weekend, the British Grand Prix, home of motorsport, and it turned out to be a proper cracker, didn't it? It was an amazing race. Obviously, we'll touch on a few key points. Obviously, the first lap crash, first corner crash, and the whole start line incident. We'll then talk a little bit about Carlos Sainz and Ferrari probably not taking the advantage that they should have done out of the weekend. And we'll talk a little bit about Lewis Hamilton and what seems to be Mercedes' comeback a little bit. So first of all, obviously let's address the crash. So pleased to see everyone out safe and sound. I think Alex Albon was actually the worst affected by it, which was sort of interesting considering the impact that Zhou had. What an impact that was, by the way. I'd never thought I'd see a shunt like that at turn 1. It was a freak accident, but it happens in motorsport, and I think it's fair to say that the Halo did its job this weekend. Jean Todt tweeted out saying how proud he was that the Halo was brought in, even against the sort of aesthetic-ness of the fans and the fact that they wanted a prettier car, and the Halo wasn't exactly the most attractive thing in the world. But obviously we've seen it save numerous lives. And I think I read something on Twitter, by the way, that the agent or manager for Zhou Guan Yu is the same guy who was Jules Bianchi's manager. It was either manager or engineer, but you know, someone who was important in Jules Bianchi's motorsport career and his Formula 1 career in particular, is now in that role at Alfa Romeo, or you know, with Zhou. And you know, one of the features that Jules Bianchi's crash brought into the sport has saved another driver's life today. So that's a really sort of sentimental, nice thing to be thinking about. It's interesting, and I'm sure there's going to be a big investigation around the roll hoop of the Alfa Romeo. It looks like it sort of crumbled under the pressure and under the stress and the load of the car. So that might be looked at. You know, it might be that Alfa Romeo have built a sort of a lackluster roll hoop that can't provide the right safety that it should. Obviously, it should have gone through the regulations and had its thorough checks. So if there is an issue there's been a sort of a problem with the FIA and Alfa Romeo. It isn't just on them, but yeah, the Halo saved lives. That's the main part of this conversation. Obviously, we saw George Russell get out of his car. He was obviously the one that had the shunt with Zhou get out of his car. We saw him get out of his car. I've seen videos since then of him obviously running across and you know, speeding the safety marshals up to get them out on circuit quicker, particularly sort of the emergency marshals, the ambulances and stuff. So that's really sweet. I felt sorry for him for not being, you know, able to restart and take the restart of the second part of the race. But I get it. It's the regulations at the end of the day. So you know, you have to stick by those regulations and be consistent, which is what the FIA is trying to do this year. Like I say, it was great to see the race. To see Zhou get out, or be extracted out of the car, and he was all okay. He was in the paddock after, you know, towards the end of the race, and with Stefano Domenicali and having a chat, and he looked all good. So I'm sure there'll be no issues going into Austria. Hope not anyway. I felt really sorry for him as well, though. Obviously he had his shunt, but also he had a fantastic qualifying, out-qualified his teammate, and you know, was the lead Alpha. Didn't go around the first corner, but I remember shouting at my TV as I saw the Alpha upside down going into turn 1. Obviously at that point we didn't know the extent of what's actually happened, and the fact that car was in that place is crazy. You know, and it just shows what sort of natural load crashes and, you know, what natural things can occur, what freak things can occur in a natural shunt. But yeah, like I say, great to see him jump out the car. Good to see Alex is alright as well. It's quite a hefty shunt into the wall, and ultimately, you know, we can understand that this is just a racing incident, I think. You know, it was a sort of a combination of a lot of people getting a bad start off the line, which was really strange. Don't know if that was something to do with the tyres and possible lower sort of temps than expected on circuits or on track. The track temp was maybe lower, so less grip in general. The first start, let's talk about that very briefly, with Lewis getting an amazing start, and I think he probably would have been a bit disappointed to see the red flags come out, albeit for the right reasons. They came out, but you know, 5th to 3rd, and vaulted himself into the opportunity to go on and try and fight for that win. Obviously Max got a great start, and we saw him take the lead straight away, and I think, you know, without anything happening in that first section of the race, we may have seen him run away with this weekend. So in one way it was good. The Max fans will, you know, want to see him run away every weekend, just like the Lewis fans do. But it was good for the neutrals and the spectators to be able to end up seeing an absolute cracking race. So yeah, so that's sort of the first part. You know, the second part in Ferrari, and you know how they didn't maximise the weekend this weekend. So, you know, the main title contender for Ferrari is Charles Leclerc. Sainz now, after taking this win, and what a fantastic win it was, and he had every right, he deserved to be able to fight for that win this weekend, and we'll come on to that in a second. But he's only now, I think, 11 points behind Charles Leclerc, so that's a you know, a real turnaround for Sainz, considering, you know, at the Spanish Grand Prix I was saying that he needs to find some form, and he's found that form, and he's taking it to Charles now, and he's been able to, you know, take it to the Red Bulls as well, obviously putting it on pole this weekend. So, you know, it was a great weekend for Carlos. Obviously Ferrari would be pleased with taking a win, but Charles is their main title protagonist, and they didn't maximise his opportunity this weekend, particularly as Max dropped down the order. A quick note on Max, obviously ultimately had quite a quiet race weekend. Bit dodgy with Mick at the end, I'm not sure, you know, ultimately nothing was done of it, and that's probably right, but you know, he was very feisty right at the end. Obviously he wants to pick up every point he can, but what a classy drive from him. You know, he had a bit of debris, by the sound of it, stuck in the floor, and that can be a huge issue for the cars in terms of the turn of the cars. So, you know, when it completely knocks the balance out, if you've got something wedged, you know, in the floor, it's going to either knock out the front and make it understeer massively, or knock out the back and see the oversteer. I think we saw the understeer aspect for Max this weekend, but you know, I've been critical of Max this year already. But he drove fantastically to pick up decent points as well. It wasn't just in 10th, you know, he picked up 7th place, and with a damaged car he was still able to, you know, take the fight. It might show just how good the Red Bull car is, but also, you know, Max knew that his fight was not this weekend, and he didn't try to push it too far. He picked up as many points as he could, and goes on to next weekend, where he's probably favourite in Austria, let's be fair. But because of that, you know, he still dropped points, he still wasn't at the sharp end, and Charles Leclerc finished 4th. You know, you need, when your competitor, your main rival, is having a bad weekend, like Max did, he doesn't have many of these, Charles needs to be maximising those points. Charles had a DNF in Spain and a DNF in Baku. Max picked up the win in both of those weekends, and I believe he got fastest lap in both of those as well. So, you know, he picked up as many points as he absolutely could, and Charles finished 4th and Max finished 7th, so it was only a 6-point difference here. And also, he finished 4th and Checo finished 2nd after the first lap incident between them, and Checo dropping down to 17th. Obviously, the safety car helped massively, and it gave Checo the opportunity to bounce back, but and put those tyres on at the right time. I think Ferrari outplayed themselves a little bit again. It was really difficult to make that call. Charles was damned if he didn't, damned if he did, damned if he didn't. Do you know what I mean? He's out front. If he doesn't make the call, Sainz does, Lewis does, Checo does. If he does make the call, then the others might stay out, and they then have track position. It was a real tough decision, but ultimately we see that it was the wrong one. Fair play to Carlos for almost biting back at Ferrari and saying, no, I'm not going to hold up the guys behind. I can go and win this for us. And that's exactly what he did. He got past Charles really early, flew away from the pack, and everyone else was battling between themselves. And before you knew it, he had a 4.5 second lead after about 2 laps. So, he did a real good job there. And his first win, he must be absolutely over the moon. Maybe we'll start to see a bit of a momentum shift here, and Carlos start to come to the fore and maybe take on those Red Bulls. We know how good he is. He's been quality. Only 8 points behind Charles last year in the championship, and he's had a tough start this year, but maybe he can start to press on now. So let's talk a little bit about the Brits this weekend. Obviously being their home circuit, George, Lewis, Alex and Lando as well. George obviously got taken out really early, and so did Alex with that big incident at the start of the first start. And George kind of got it wrong a little bit in qualifying as well, as he admitted. Alex Albon had a weird one. He was out qualified by Latifi, which doesn't happen very often. Latifi performed very well, but Alex supposedly had the upgrades. It might have been the fact that it was wet in qualifying, and we didn't get to see the upgrades that they've got on the car in action. But I don't think he would have been best pleased about the qualifying result, and obviously I think he'll be grateful for everyone being okay, but probably frustrated that the race ended so soon. Lando quietly plodded on, massively out-qualified Danny Rick on the Saturday, and massively outperformed him on the Sunday. There's a real issue with Daniel Ricciardo here. I don't know what it is. He's massively out of form, and I wonder whether these might be the end of his Formula 1 career in the next year or two. I could see him going to IndyCar and performing really well and doing really well there, or going into endurance racing. Obviously McLaren with Zach Brown have got all those connections, so I could see him still being part of the McLaren family, but there's pressure from Pato O'Ward, there's pressure from other youngsters coming through the Formula series as well, in terms of Formula 2 and Formula 3, so at some point they've got to act. He's really out of form, and like I say, I almost feel sorry for the guy. He's such a great guy. He's always smiling, always happy, but we're seeing something here where it's not quite working out, and Lando shouldn't be outperforming him like he is. No discredit to Lando, he's doing a fantastic job, really is. He's doing the British public proud in that McLaren, but Daniel should be taking it to him, and he's not. So that is going to be investigated, I'm sure, and it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is. Zach Brown's hard but fair, I think is the best way to describe him, and Carlos Sainz was performing better than Daniel Ricciardo is against Lando Norris, and whether that's Lando taking it up a level or two, and Daniel not being able to match it, whether that's Lando or McLaren putting the car together better for Lando Norris, or quite what it is, I'm not sure, but Daniel Ricciardo needs to bounce back very, very quickly and have a fantastic second half of the season. He's got to perform consistently for the rest of the season now, in my opinion, otherwise he's going to be in some real trouble with that seat. And then finally, the last Brit, Lewis Hamilton, 37 years old, and people saying out of his prime now. I think he proved those wrong this weekend. It was amazing to watch. I like Lewis a lot. I think he's fantastic. You know, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a Lewis fan. I'm just a neutral that loves the series and loves watching motorsport. But obviously I'm British and I back the British boys and girls, you know, in W Series as well. But yeah, Lewis drove vintage Lewis Hamilton this weekend, and it was great to watch. You know, fastest lap after lap consecutively, trying to catch those Ferraris, putting every ounce of effort into it. And he seemed a little deflated in the post-race, you know, conversation with Bono, with his engineer, and probably with Toto as well. I think he probably thought they could win it this weekend, but you know, it just wasn't quite, didn't quite come together for them. But still, what a weekend for the bloke, and it's great to see a British driver on the podium at the British Grand Prix. Just like you know, back in Monaco, I would have enjoyed to see Charles Leclerc take the win there and see the Monegasque on top step in Monaco. So yeah, and the fans were fantastic. They got right behind Lewis and you know, really probably pushed them on a little bit more than he had in his locker. So it would have been interesting to see what George could have done, because they looked like they had pace, and Lewis Hamilton does what Lewis Hamilton does best, and is the tyre king. He's able to keep those Pirellis you know, rocking and rolling until late in the day. Those mediums lasted way longer than anticipated, and that's probably driving style, but also the fact that he can just keep them held on. So yeah, so overall, amazing weekend, amazing Grand Prix. Great to see so many fans. I think they had over 400,000 people. It was great to see. Carlos Sainz taking his first win from I believe it was his first ever pole position as well. So you know, he really put it together this weekend. Took his first win. Let's see how he bounces into Australia, if he can take that momentum on. What could have been for Charles Leclerc, again, I keep saying that in these videos, and I've said it again today. They should have taken more points off Max Verstappen. Max did fantastically to get a result. Checo Perez did fantastically to bounce back, and obviously Lewis rounding out that top three, they rounding out that podium in third, and the reception he got was amazing. I think my driver of the day was Lewis, probably just over Perez. Perez got the official Formula 1 driver of the day vote, but mine would have gone to Lewis for sure. He just performed fantastically. So yeah, so wrap up of the British Grand Prix for you. I'll be dropping a preview of the Austrian Grand Prix, which is obviously this weekend coming, on Thursday. So make sure to subscribe, like this video, comment on it. Let me know what you think in the comments below in regards to how I sort of evaluate that weekend. You know, who was your driver of the day? And do you think Max performed amazingly, like I'm saying he did? And how did you feel seeing Carlos stand on the top step for the first time? Let me know in the comments below. But thank you very much for watching. I'm Motorsport, and until next time, we'll wait and see.